the names of God. Maybe we can figure it out together. Is the name of the thing that eats Moloch, and maybe Moloch doesn't want to be eaten. Moloch wants to be saved, right?
I think Moloch does want to be saved.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, I got the board. Ready?
Yes.
Ooh. How do I hold this thing? Oh, did I just do it?
Hi.
Hey.
This is my first time ever in an official seeming podcast interview discussion setup.
Yep. I've been on official podcasts, but all of them online, like all of them Zoom based or Riverside or whatever. So, but I like the in-person-y.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
What are we talking about?
We were talking about, so we were sort of like, okay, like, I mean, basically, somehow we got talking about Moloch, and I was like, I'm pretty sure there's a creature that eats
You're talking about
Moloch.
hyperstitioning good futures.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, how do we beat Moloch?
How do we beat Moloch, right?
Yeah.
So it's like if there's, so we start by assuming that we're going to beat Moloch somehow. Mm-hmm. So start from that assumption, and then
that's the first part of the hyperstition.
Yeah. Because it's like I was saying to some people the other day. I was talking about like using hyperstitioning in part to like find your soulmate, and as part of your strategy, you condition on. You assume that you're going to find. I don't like the term soulmate, but find your life partner. Mm-hmm. You assume that you're going to find your life partner, and then you say, given that I will, what am I doing such that works? So that you're living into the worlds that eventually work out, and that's a separate question from how much of your resources you should devote to that particular whatever strategy you come up with. Anyway, that's a tangent. So hyperstitioning good futures, and how do we beat Moloch?
Yeah, just what does hyperstition mean again? Are you using it to just mean like self-fulfilling prophecy, essentially?
Basically, like to be, to just articulate it a totally different way. So two things. Like one is when you have so like from an active inference type perspective, your image of what you expect to happen is going to affect what happens.
Right.
And so you want to be aware of risks and failure modes, but not sort of focusing on them primarily. And there's this great, video that Visa shares that's like the dad is like saying to his son who's biking down the hill, like, don't hit the tree, don't hit the tree, don't hit the tree, and then or don't crash into the tree, and then the son just like steers straight into the tree because he's just like fixated on the tree, and maybe even fixated on the image of hitting the tree. In fact, right?
Yeah.
So you want to be aware of failure modes, but you want your attention to be on what you're going to do instead, like how else it's going to go. And I don't know, I've been getting super into psychocybernetics and could talk a little bit about that, but it's basically the same idea.
Cool.
The other thing, the reason I'll say that this is important, and the reason why I think hyperstitioning has become more sort of in vogue the last few years, is that the ideas that we put out there also affect what LLMs do, right? Like you put out an idea of how the future is going to go, and the LLMs will start operating start simulating, insofar as LLM is like a simulation type AI, right? It just starts simulating futures like that. And if you put out the idea of a particular character, it'll start simulating that character. Or it'll be able to simulate that character. Maybe it'll also sort of do so without being specifically asked to, but it'll be better at doing so the more so that character feels like a real coherent entity. And so I've been sort of thinking, like, how do we get more of an image of where we'd like to go out into the world for ourselves, for each other, and for the LLMs? Yeah.
Sweet. For what it's worth, this seems to the absence of a shared positive vision for the future that pretty much everyone across all the different ideologies can point at and be like, yeah, this is the thing that we want. That was kind of vague and not quite what I was going for, but directionally accurate. That sort of feels like a bottleneck for things going well, in my view. Because in the absence of that, everyone can just point to things that and be like, well, that's not good, we shouldn't have that. And everyone's got their own version of that, and like they might all be right, but in the absence of like a clear thing that they could all be working together toward instead, there's just going to be gridlock around which bad things to avoid first.
And there's an which is there's an unfortunate asymmetry here, which is like in general, if you think in the context of politics, right? There's like all this polarization and tension and whatever. But in general, I've found that if I listen to anybody describe their problems, I'm like, yeah, those are real problems. And then they start talking about their proposed solutions, and I'm like, that your proposed solutions are probably not going to fix your problem and might make it worse. And if they do fix your problem, they're going to do so by angering a bunch of people who are going to then make your problem even, like, they're going to remake your problem. Like, you're not actually, your solution is shit. But your problem, that's a real problem. I agree you have a real problem. And just because I think your solution is very bad does not mean I don't agree that you have a real problem. And so there's something about like the asymmetry of that, where actually most articulated problems are real and often articulated even fairly well, but like the solutions that are proposed are just non-starters, most of them. And so there is a real puzzle of like, and I think part of this, in my experience, involves a bit of slowing down, a bit of widening our viewport, because it might be that this problem, sort of, if you just try to consider it, is totally intractable, and so is this problem. And if you consider the two problems together, they're also totally intractable. But if you consider all three at once, you're like, wait a minute. If you solve this by turning, then it's sort of...
Yeah, a bunch of the assumptions that are taken for granted in the problem formulations might turn out to be a lot more malleable. Than...
Or just like, if you think about like, okay, suppose I have a problem which is, suppose I have a couple problems. One problem is I want to make more money. Another problem is I don't have a plan for what I'm doing with my life. Oh, then suppose somebody comes along and is like, hey, Malcolm, here's your dream job. Well, now, like, these problems are actually sort of solutions to each other. I can make money doing the thing I really want to do. But, like, it required bringing in also this person has problems, which is they want to hire someone. And, like, and that, you know, like, the markets are finding these win-wins between two problems that actually, like, get solved not at cost, but at, with, surplus gains of trade or whatever. But the question of how you actually go about finding the surplus gains of trade or whatever, like the question of how you actually do that is not, you can't simply decide like, hello, person I just met, shall we engage in an economic interaction that's mutually beneficial to both of us? It's sort of like, well, what? Like there's a skill, is what I'm saying. It's not, like, having an orientation towards that definitely helps, right? Like, that is a different orientation to bring to an interaction with a stranger than is, I wonder if I can dominate you. Like, that's a very different orientation, but there's still also a skill. And,
How do you tie this all with high precision and good futures? Just going back to the beginning.
So, I'm trying to remember how we even got from hyperstition and good futures to the win-wins thing. I'm like, oh, political polarization, right? Okay, so I'll just try to like strengthen that arrow first, and then if there's another arrow to complete. So you were talking about the bottleneck of like an absence of a shared vision that we can sort of all get behind, and
I just want to say that part of that, in my view, is a vision for how Moloch actually gets beaten.
Not just a vision of the future in general.
Yes, because in the absence of that piece, I think everyone would be like, well, yeah, that would be nice, but this doesn't seem realistic. Like, you know.
Yeah, so...
like the United Nations might be like, yeah, we should do this, and have as much influence as it usually does.
By Moloch, like, who cares?
Yeah.
What's the point? Yeah. Right, and even if people don't have, the word Moloch or, super well articulated reasons why these attractors are there, they have intuitions for why we can't have nice things. And so there's a need to sort of explain why, in fact, we can have nice things.
Can we have nice things?
Well, we have quite a number of them, right? Like Moloch has not eaten all of the value in the world.
Yeah, but is it going to? Is it about to?
Right. I mean,
What's your vision for?
right.
being
Yeah.
Moloch?
So one of the pieces that seems really clear to me is that so basically I feel like I've seen a way in which something like there's an insight that someone can have. And when I say insight, I mean something that in this case is I'm going to say relatively rare in practice, but like literacy was also relatively rare at one point, and now like everybody can read at least a little bit.
Okay.
And it's an insight that's kind of like there's this thing called the Sally-Ann test, right, which measures theory of mind. Basically, like, and I was talking about this yesterday in the context of subjective science, where part of what's going on when you learn how to pass the Sally-Ann test is that you start noticing that maybe your existing hypothesis, which is basically that like there's stuff that's known and knowers know the stuff. And then you start to realize maybe they don't. What's really going on there? And so you start to do some tests. You tell some lies, and you discover that if you tell your mom, "No, I have no idea what happened to the cookies," then she goes and asks your sister, and you're like, "Interesting, huh?" And then maybe you have a hypothesis that nobody knows what you're thinking, and that you can just lie all the time, and you test that, and you soon find that doesn't work either. Hopefully you find soon that doesn't work either, otherwise you end up in a very weird attractor.
Yeah.
And so that's how you improve your theory of mind by doing experiments of like finding out like what happens with this. It seems to me that there's deeper layers of theory of mind that many people don't get to. Where it's not just like other people know different facts, but like no, they actually have wildly different worldviews. They think very different stuff, and these differences.
Can I just tangentially mention that realizing this about my parents was crucial for mending my relationship with them?
They just like have different values than you.
Well, they grew up in communist China, and I just didn't have a visceral sense of what that meant concretely. Until I was an adult and listened to stories they told, and I was just like, wow, that's just a completely alien world that they grew up in.
Right. How did that play out for you like that? Like, how did that affect your relationship with them?
Well, a bunch of my old narratives around how they were being bad shifted to like, oh...
That makes sense. Actually, like...
Or like that made sense from their
Yeah.
Vantage point, which was completely alien to me
Right,
as
right.
a 13-year-old growing up in America.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a temptation without this insight to just round everybody doing things that don't make sense to you to they're doing things that don't make sense. But it's like, no, the thing that they're doing does make sense to them. Otherwise, they would have done something else, even if that other something else also wouldn't make sense to you. Like, and we could get at like internal conflict and all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, so
Beating Moloch.
right. So beating Moloch. So there's an insight of this type that is true, right? Like in the same way that like the basic theory of mind insight is true. Like there are ways of formulating it that you can find exceptions to, but there's some basic underlying truth that like you come to learn about knowers and doers in this case. Like, because it's sort of at this point we're not just talking theory of mind, but we're actually talking theory of we're talking theory of embodied, embedded mind, right? Like theory of like other people making sense of stuff differently than you do, not just knowing different facts. And so there's this insight, and because it's true, you can, if you know it and someone else knows it, then you can potentially sync up about the fact that you both know it. And it's not that like one of you has convinced the other. It's like you can recognize, oh, we both have observed this thing about people having different ways of seeing stuff. I think I'm like slightly like trying to express 2 points at once. But I think in part because I haven't teased them apart super clearly in my own thinking, so it's part of why I'm in a little bit of a muddle here. sometimes I'll grab an example that I usually use for one thing and to like try to use it for another, and like often it works. It like gets exapted into this new purpose. I'm like, oh, this example is actually great for like making this point in addition to being great for making this point. Like the same story like does different stuff. But other times I'm like, wait, nope, I'm just down a dead end now. So where was I? So there's this insight, and if you sync up about this insight, let's just sort of finish this arc, and then maybe I'll have to like jump tracks a little. If you sync up about this insight, then you can kind of so first of all, having the insight means that if you're orienting to another being that is relating to you as if what you didn't make sense to you, not just didn't make sense to them, then you can sort of go, okay, they haven't had this insight yet. But if they saw this insight, they would know that what I did made sense to me. And so I know that their lack of seeing that makes sense to them because I've had this insight, and because I can sort of tell that they're thinking that what I didn't make sense is part of their sense making. Their actual best sense making is that what I did just didn't make sense, as opposed to didn't make sense to them and it made sense to me. And from there, you can start to meet the other person where they're at and sort of draw out like, okay, well, why do you think I did it? Or maybe, sort of find some piece there. But, man, I'm trying to say so many things. Whew. So I'm tracking the hyperstition stuff. I'm also about to get to Jesus. Let's just jump there. I don't know how to make all the bridge, but there's a particular thing which is...
Let's jump to Jesus.
Yeah. Experimentally, a year and a bit ago, I tried retranslating, in essence, the Lord's Prayer. I was like, what if I just attempted to look at each line, feel the wisest thing I can imagine that line meaning, and then put that into words that are not going to be confusing to people who are like, what do you mean, what's a trespass? Like, trespassing on a property, right? Like, just like the King James language is very confusing to people, right? So I was like, how could I put this in ways that would point people at the deepest wisdom that I've seen that reflects this? And when I got to forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us, what I came up with was see the sense in everything that we do, even when we make mistakes or cause harm, as we honor the sense in all that others do, even when we don't understand it or trust it. And that's like my way of pointing at this insight remixed into this old prayer. And I think, going back to some stuff that you were bringing in when we were talking earlier this afternoon, I think that there's a way in which having this like mutual regard, this capacity to both recognize both recognize and feel that on the deepest level, like what you did made sense, even if you don't know what sense it made, that like, because there's different parts or whatever, but that like you aren't fundamentally wrong, that actually no, you were doing sensible things the whole time. How could you possibly have been doing otherwise? That's kind of contained in the forgiveness piece, and that when people hold this attitude together, they become capable of getting over grudges and finding new possibilities, which is kind of what you were getting at about the role of Christ in, or the Christ archetype or shape or insight or whatever in whatever might transcend Moloch, and like finding win-wins. Yeah. I don't know, do you want to lay that out a little more again, or from a different angle?
There are a couple places I wanted to push on the picture you were just laying out, but I think I want to hear you just tie in more what you just said with your vision of beating Moloch.
Yeah.
Or I guess I kind of hear what you're saying as like a claim that a radical kind of mutual understanding is possible in principle.
Definitely in principle.
Yeah.
Well, so I guess there's two claims. One is like a kind of mutual respect from across the chasm, where you're like, I actually don't know what things are like for you, but I respect that they are very different from anything I know, and I'm going to like allow you to be as long as you're over there and not like attacking me. If you're attacking me, I will fight back or whatever because or something. I mean, that gets into all these other different turn the other cheeks in every different moral dimensions. But like I will stand my ground, but I'm going to let you be actually you, not just in a live and let live sense in a kind of material way, but in like I'm not going to pretend that your reality isn't your reality. I'm going to like let your reality be alien to me. Sorry, that was me laying out a slight rearticulation of one part of what you were saying. You're like a radical something.
Kind of mutual understanding.
Right. Yeah. And
it's
so
possible in principle.
Right. And then the second thing is, can you actually come to like an integration of these two views, some two different views that are very different? And that to me, it seems, is also very possible. And sometimes costly, but also when it happens, it's quite fruitful. So the costs may get repaid.
Okay, I think I want to now raise one of the points I wanted to push on earlier, which is that suppose there are two sociopaths that can understand each other very well, and they're basically just like, yep, you're a sociopath who cares about ABC things. I don't understand why you care about those ABC things, but you do, and that's what drives your actions. And I hate the ABC things, so I don't. And I care about XYZ things, and you know that, and they seem weird and arbitrary to you, and you hate the XYZ things. And so even though we understand each other, we're still going to hate each other and step over each other's toes. Couldn't this?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes back to stuff on the scale of hyperstitioning good futures and like what it means to like to care for our environment so that we can continue to live in it, the sociopaths, unless they have a death wish, are like that's thing M that they like both care about actually, because they're living in the same environment, like, and so even if they are like pissed off about things ABC and XYZ, they should on some level be able to say, okay, but we would like, at least in principle, to like find a mutually beneficial solution to this, and we would be willing, because we can't meet any of our needs if we're all dead, like, or we're all stuck in awful shitty dynamics, we might be willing to cooperate to solve that. Like, it doesn't like, you can sort of have full self-interest and you still want your environment to be good, like,
yeah,
like, and like, and sociopaths benefit from all of the other ways in which our society is working, like,
yes,
and I mean, it does get into questions of whether on the margin the win-win solutions are going to feel more satisfying than like dominance coercion solutions. I think like there's some differential there, but I'm not totally sure what you're getting at though. Are you saying something like, are you trying to push back against the idea that just because people like mutually sort of respect each other's viewpoint that they'll want to collaborate, or?
Yeah, mutual understanding seems necessary for deep coordination, but not
sufficient.
Yeah.
So I think like when we come back to like, I think at present there is even some substantial amount of motivation towards, wouldn't it be nice if we had a future we could all get behind? And I think that so which is the thing you're saying is the bottleneck,
right? But I think part of the issue right now is that pretty much any specific proposal that anyone comes up with
is too parochial.
Precisely.
Yeah.
There are too many idiosyncratic assumptions that aren't shared by most of the rest of the world.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
And those sort of map to like the ABCs and the XYZs. Where.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do we do about that?
What do we do about that? Yeah. So.
I think we have to get behind all the ABCs and XYZs, and there's like
You mean
a
get
claim
at
about
what are the underlying
underneath.
what like yeah okay A, B, and C are strategies in service of
Yes.
some deeper whatevers.
Yeah, that actually is convergence. Or like this is a claim about the nature of different values
Of
people
values
have.
that like on some deeper level they converge.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean like this is sort of the NVC take that people have their strategies which might be in conflict, but underneath they have needs, and the needs are sort of you might not know how to meet all of them at once, but the needs themselves don't conflict.
Yes.
Something like that.
But I also think I think this is true, but I think part of the issue is getting all the relevant players to admit that this is true, because NVC requires a kind of courage in acknowledging acknowledging your needs as vulnerable.
Right, right. And if you're in a scenario where not only do you not trust that they won't get satisfied, but you don't trust that people won't fuck with you, then like you really don't want to be honest about what your actual needs are.
Yeah.
Right? Like if a bully will exploit them, basically.
Yeah. In some sense, I think of the tragedy of Trump as being precisely around this, of this man having a bunch of really, really deep needs that he feels like if he ever acknowledges them to even himself, he's just going to get bullied and taken advantage of. And so he builds his whole life around pretending like he doesn't have needs and pursue strategies that make him as invulnerable as possible. And he's pursuing them quite well. And
Right, yeah, but it's sort of like it's with a very large collateral effect.
yes.
Yeah.
Including on his own soul.
Yeah.
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 There's a way in which I think of Trump as like a pure ego, and part of why he pisses people off is because everyone has an ego, and they just they're just like he's just unabashedly, shamelessly being an ego.
Well, right,
whereas I
and
have shame around.
he's not right. He's not sort of succumbing to the. When you say he pisses everybody off,
Yeah.
right? It's like there are a lot of people who feel very liberated by Trump going out there and not being shameful about things that they have been shamed for, but don't agree with the shaming.
Yeah.
And so they're like, oh, finally, someone's out there just saying, giving a big middle finger to all of these pressures that I don't understand that are punishing me for things I don't get. And like finally someone's standing up to that. Right, is like the feeling from probably many of the people who voted for him on various levels.
Right.
But then from people who are sort of have adopted the values that he's flouting or whatever.
Yeah.
By which I mean more on like basic social norms and stuff, separate from values, like separate from the question of whether what he's doing is in terms of policies is good for America, separate from that thing.
Right.
Like, just in terms of his character and so on. Like people who have adopted norms that he's flouting are like, hey, you can't. That's and maybe there's a mix of actually like if that person is internally divided, there's maybe a mix of hey, you can't do that.
Yeah.
While meanwhile someone else is like, because I don't get to do that.
Yeah.
That's not fair. Like it's an envy thing that's present in it as well.
Yeah.
Which the person wouldn't have if they wouldn't have such a complex thing if they weren't divided on some level about it. But they don't necessarily realize that. Yeah.
Going back a bit from the Trump thread, I do think the bit about sort of an NVC frame where like all of the different ABCs and XYZs, the different parochial assumptions that conflict with each other, the perspective that those are actually just strategies for meeting core underlying needs that are universal, I think is, in my view, a crucial component of
How this is all going to work.
yes.
Yeah. Say more about that.
Well, if we don't have that, that sort of sets an upper bound on the depth of cooperation that I think would actually be possible.
Like, as in, if we don't get those underlying needs met some other way, or just if we don't have that as part of our model?
If we don't... More the former, and the latter is a necessary prerequisite for the former. I think.
Yeah, this was related to the thing you were saying about accepting love,
Yes.
right? Like that might be like if there's some need you're trying to meet in this sort of like egoic way that's consistently failing, and it turns out that you can actually meet that need through a change in your internal, well, not exactly internal, but a change in your stance and like relationship toward the world.
Yes, which might feel a lot like giving up or accepting defeat.
I mean, it certainly will to the strategy. Like
Yes.
if you like anthropomorphize the strategy, it's like there's a kind of failure of that.
Yes, and the unwillingness, that kind of unwillingness to give up and accept defeat, which is a necessary prerequisite to opening to the love, I think is one of the strongest forces driving Moloch.
Interesting. Why Moloch in particular? And not like just forces of evil more vaguely. Like
I don't mean Moloch in particular.
Okay.
Like I think this applies.
This is why we have problems. Is that there's this gripping?
Not just a gripping, but an unwillingness to surrender to God's love. In poetic terms.
Yeah. Here at Lighthaven, talking religion. It's good shit.
Yeah.
This is bringing me in contact with something that I've been wrestling with for a little while, which is, I don't know, on some level sort of a change of topic, or not a change of topic, but it's sort of like, it's where I currently am with that. So it feels like there's a kind of honesty to bringing it in. Like it's just sort of like, okay, here's where I am in the struggle. Were you gonna say something?
No.
Oh, okay. I found myself with a way of accepting God's love, or something like a some sort of move that felt sort of available, that would be something like that. But I could also tell that it would in some way make me feel like it would make me actually wall myself off from something like those who hadn't, and would sort of
Sorry, those who hadn't what?
accepted this love, or something. And there's something about that feels incomplete to me, but feels very common. This attitude of something like all you have to do is surrender, and yeah, it's going to really hurt, and you're going to have to like give up your ego strategies or whatever, but then you'll be so much more satisfied on the other side.
I mean, there are bad ways to do that I've done and suffered the consequences of, so.
Right. So there's this thing for me that's sort of something like, I guess I see there as being like a deep kind of trust building process here that's partially about like how do you even locate the referent of surrender to God's love? Like there is some set of moves that you could refer to with that phrase.
Yeah.
Some of which are like just utterly silly. Some of which are like might be good for someone to do. Like I met a born again Christian who was like, I'm now free from my alcoholism and my porn addiction and everything else because I accepted God's love. But meanwhile, he's like on the streets, like yelling at people with a megaphone that they're all sinners. And I'm like, buddy, this is, for most people, that's not an attractor they can step into. It was for you, and I'm glad that you got it. But like, you're now out here preaching obnoxiously and making this Sunday fair awful because you're trying to share this thing. So that's like a different kind of weird rut to get into. And then there's maybe more subtle ones, and then there's some other subset that are like the real deal or something. I mean, but his is also sort of the real deal. It's a real deal, right? And that's part of the confusion of the whole thing. It's like, but he got as part of the package that you got to follow this particular moral prescription, which is exclusionary, and everyone else is wrong and sinners, and the Catholics are evil according to these guys. Which I mean. I have critiques of the Catholics, but like this is like teaching your kids about Santa Claus is evil, and like various other,
Sure. I think of what feels to me like a central example of doing it right. If someone was heartbroken and feels jaded in their heart because of a bunch of stories they have about how they're unlovable that were actually based off of misinterpretations, which I think is extremely common, but then develop a whole bunch of compensatory strategies around accruing status, wealth, power, so that they won't get heartbroken in the future. Often what's driving that pull towards status, wealth, and power, to the extent that what's driving that is this feeling of heartbreak and the fear.
avoiding the feeling of heartbreak,
And insofar as that fear is so deep and scary that they would... Basically, they're building their whole lives around avoiding that feeling and pursuing all these worldly things instead. There's a thing where, like, those worldly things are never actually going to bring them what they're actually craving, which is to heal that original heartbreak and to open to love. But the only way they'd be able to do that is if they go back and confront those feelings and see how they were based off of misconceptions in the first place. But often in practice, the only thing that would get people to that point is if they decide they have a problem with their pursuits, with their compensatory pursuits.
Right, like if the pursuits aren't working well enough.
Yeah, that's often a catalyst.
On some level.
Or if they are working, but they notice that they keep being dissatisfied.
Yeah, there's some sort of issue. Yeah, because I mean, as long as things are working, you keep doing what you're doing, sort of by definition, like...
Yeah. But the decision to stop those pursuits, or to acknowledge, like, admit defeat and say, like, yeah, all of these things I was investing my life energy in were basically a distraction from this running away from this fear of being unloved. That's the aspect of surrender I was trying to gesture at earlier, and the opening to God's love part.
It feels a bit like surrendering to truth, even, like just like being willing to acknowledge what's so.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think there is a separate empirical claim here that, like, it is always possible to surrender to truth in a way that opens to
love.
And satisfies some deeper need that you have that you perhaps were running away from.
Interesting.
This, I think, is like a sort of empirical claim about psychology that's I think, like, latent across the various different religious and spiritual traditions. That for me feels like crucial for the tractability of a global NVC process.
But you feel that it's well justified by the data.
I'm placing my bets there.
Sure. Which gets at the hyperstitioning thing a little bit. Like, I like Anna's post on believing in.
Yeah. I haven't yet hit walls living my life in this way, and the people who do live their lives in this way, like, assuming this empirical hypothesis about psychology is true, seem to have deeper layers of happiness and joy in their lives and their relationships. And that those feel to me like compelling evidence for continuing to live life in this way.
Yeah, and if it turns out to not work, then as long as it hasn't gotten you into a terrible trap in the meantime, then you can live life some yet different way. Like,
right, yeah. I'm also reminded of something earlier you said today in a different conversation of of replacing an old wrong hypothesis you were not confident with a newer hypothesis that might also be wrong, that you're also not confident in, but is definitely more likely to be correct than the old one.
Right.
And I think I'm squarely in the camp of, like, living as though this empirical claim about psychology is true seems less wrong than the one in which people just, like, have different values that are incompatible for whatever reason.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I feel like I didn't quite hit the nail on the head with the thing I was saying I was struggling with.
Yeah, let's try that again.
Which is, so the way I've described it is something like I've described this as a prayer from hell, which is to say that like there's and this is partially riffing on some like C.S. Lewis stuff that I've read, but the themes show up in lots of other contexts too, where it's like there's a hang on, I almost just have an insight there. An insight is better than completing my point. Even though we're, on the air or whatever. Like, let me there's this question that's something like, I want to. So there's this thing of like, I'm in a hole, and then the holy person's like, yeah, man, you're in a hole, but you're putting yourself in the hole. You gotta like stop doing this thing to yourself that keeps you in the hole. And the person's like, but I don't know how to do that. Like, I don't know how. Can you help me out of the hole? And they're like, you can only help yourself out of the hole. And there's this kind of like, I can't do it for you attitude, which is true. There's a truth to that.
Yeah.
But there's also an attitude that can come along with it that's something like almost a sort of victim stance on the part of the person who's trying to invite the person to accept love, where they're sort of like, there's nothing I can do. This person just won't accept love into their heart, and so what could I do, really? Which seems to me to be really common among people who are trying to point at making this shift. Like, they'll talk about making some choice to trust or some other way that they speak about it. And then like, but like there's some way in which they're kind of like, yeah, taking their own victim, like they're in their own kind of weird hell, but it's one that's like feels all nice because it's righteous and it's, does that make any sense? Like, and so I guess like the feeling I have is like, I feel like I've seen that choice, like the option to become one of those guys. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. That seems bad. And it seems like the kind of thing that if I did it, I would then think it was good. And be unable to tell. And that seems real bad. And what the retort is from the other side is, oh yeah, but like, you just think that because you haven't given up your ego, and your ego is never going to be satisfied in heaven, but that's fine because you don't need to bring your ego into heaven or something. Like, but I'm sort of like, no, there's a real thing here. Like, I want to, like, you're currently being somewhat of a jerk, and I am pretty sure that you.
Sorry, how are they being a jerk?
By taking this victim stance that is holier than thou, that's like, only you can do it. And it's like, no, I get that there's a thing that only I can do, but that doesn't mean that you couldn't in principle help arbitrarily much. Like, you could help, if part of what I'm afraid of is that that kindness is not real, you could demonstrate kindness to me until I realize it. If part of what I'm afraid of is that, like...
I don't agree with that.
You don't think so?
No.
I mean, don't you think that's what Jesus did?
Well, he failed to persuade a whole bunch of people.
Right, but there's lots of people he wouldn't have persuaded if he hadn't done what he did.
That's right.
That's what I'm saying. And different people have different criteria for truth, which is related to for trusting something, which is related to the insight I was pointing at earlier. Like, he persuaded some people and not others, and it was correct that the people who were persuaded by what he did, and the other people had a different standard of evidence that he didn't meet. And it's not because they just chose arbitrarily, senselessly to be stuck in their suffering. It's because they needed some other evidence to feel that it was right to make this shift, and they didn't get it. That's kind of like the whole point that I'm making.
It seems like you're drawing a dichotomy between senselessly choosing to stick in a hell versus innocently not having the experience to shift out of the way that they were doing things.
Yeah, and I'm saying there is no such thing as senselessly choosing to remain in a hell. That is a confusion.
I'm on board with that.
Yeah.
I mean, my own stance is that there's always some sense behind it,
Right.
even if we don't understand it.
Yeah.
At the same time, I think even if we did understand it, that would help us help them, but they still have to make the choice themselves to leave. Just like,
But
I have no control over whether I can persuade you of anything at all. If you want to believe something, it's whether or not you believe something, the ball is ultimately in your court. That's a general stance I take.
Sort of. I mean, I would say I also don't have a choice about whether to believe something.
Mm-hmm.
The ball is in the court of how it all shakes out for me. Like,
sure,
things make the sense to me that they do. And so, like, you and I both, if we want me to, like, accept God's love, let's say, it's like that seems nice. I can certainly think there are versions of that I would love to have happen to me.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
And maybe versions that whatever. So it's like if you and I would both like that, then we can creatively explore the process of how that might happen.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the ways that we might explore it might involve me complaining for some period of time about how much stuck I am in a victim hole. But like part of what I might be needing in order to get out of my victim hole is actually to be met with the reality that like it has not made sense. Like it's almost like what I want to hear is like, yeah, it makes sense that you haven't been choosing heaven. You haven't had a heaven that's felt worth choosing. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry you haven't been able to make contact with a heaven that felt obviously worth choosing.
Yeah.
Holy shit, that sucks. And that's like just a stance I don't see represented very often. And I feel even touched in myself by how I spoke it just now. Like there's a way in which I'm doing it for me.
Yeah.
Like that, like so many people.
The Trump in my soul felt seen when you said that.
Yeah.
So what is that heaven for the world ego, i.e. Moloch?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is this phrase I really like, which is, maybe we can figure it out together, is one of the names of God.
There's a lot of resonance there.
Yeah. It's like, there's something about this basic attitude of, like, it has a towardsness. It's like, you know, maybe we can figure it out together is the name of the thing that eats Moloch, right? I don't know. But maybe Moloch doesn't want to be eaten. Moloch wants to be saved, right? But I
think Moloch does want to be saved.
Yeah. There is an interesting thing where, like, I finally found my way back to like an idea I had many years ago that I described as the thing that eats Moloch that I wasn't able to think of earlier when we were talking, which was, if there's a way of living with each other that is so truly harmonious, not like full fractal buy-in magic, not just harmony, but like if there's a way of being with each other that is like that, then like if you have cities and corporations and whatever else able to find their way into that way of being at all, and they're able to sort of maintain that way of being while dealing with their boundary, right? Whether, which is different for a city versus a company versus a family versus whatever. Then that way of being, by virtue of being so much more capable of generating win-wins, outcompetes races to the bottom. So that's Moloch shaped again, but it's a race to the top. That's the shape. And there are unfortunately a lot of pitfalls along the way where you're like, hey, we've got it. No, we don't got it, right? And like I think I heard somebody say this about alpha sheets, that you guys fell apart because you did too much circling and couldn't figure out how to. I don't know if this is true. This is a claim somebody made, but
someone within the company who felt upset about the circling, despite all the benefit it caused them personally, because it challenged their narratives about how things must suck.
Right.
Might have said that.
I got it from someone who wasn't in the company, for what it's worth.
Okay.
Someone looking at it from the outside who was like, they did too much circling and couldn't get anything done. And there are failure modes in that direction, right? Like
I do not, for the record, I do not think that is what happened.
Yeah, interesting. I'd love to hear your story, which is maybe for a thing for another time. But it was funny because in my head there was this like floating token of a company this happened to, which happened to be the same company that you worked at. But I had no reason to. I have no particular reason to think that would be your story. It was just like this is a thing that happens, and one of my little case studies is like a fictionalized version of your story, which I just think is funny.
Sure.
And so it's definitely a thing that happens in some forms, right? Like I was part of a group that was making a even way weirder failure mode than that. Like our roof literally caved in while we were trying to figure out how to do collaborative culture well. And that was partially, I don't quite want to say by design, but like we were aware, and the image that was, we'll fix the roof collaboratively or not at all. Like we'll do it from this new mode or we'll not fix it. And there was something admirable to that. But it also was like, it was unwholesome in some other way. Like it was sort of failing to just be actually good at interfacing with your reality and making your life lifeful. And so in that way it was kind of narrowly crunchy, like sort of graspy in a different way.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot, there are a lot of kind of, failure modes along the way or whatever. Part of what's cool, though, about this thing that I was pointing at as this, like, upward spiral Molochian thing, where it becomes a matter of competitive necessity to develop, like, collaborative flow and we-space qualities or whatever. It's like, if we can get to some tipping point where that becomes true, then, like, let's fucking go. Again, as long as, like, the systems can maintain themselves with the pressure that might exist as well. Like, it has to, like, but the other thing about this is that insofar as there are actually many different such solutions that sort of all have the same underlying quality of being able to get the strategies out of the way and meet the underlying needs, if we want to talk about it in NBC-ish terms, or to find the true win-wins, or to create real coalitions between whole people, not just coalitions between some part of each person that's then like repressing other parts. Like insofar as like there's a couple of key components that make this possible, that sort of make for the engine of this kind of culture that is both amazing to be in and also very capable like of outperforming other cultures. There can actually be a vast diversity of what those cultures look like. Like so you end up with a vast pluralism where we don't have to get everybody on board with the idea that you need to, let's say, accept Christ into your heart.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to have that phrase, right? But that might be a really powerful language to, create multiple maybe different pockets of this. Where you might have a person who, at their company, they have this experience of the company culture. They do some, Max comes in, runs a presence games thing, and the company culture shifts, and then they find another shift, and they find another shift, and then they get this engine going, and then they go home or they go to their church, and they're like suddenly way more inspired about what the church is on about, and they sort of bring that transformation in there with different language, and so it can kind of spread in this way where it's kind of mutually recognizable, between different nodes, but it's not. There's no one ground truth about what it is, except that it's the answer to this question. It's in many forms.
Mm-hmm. And the important thing seems to be the ability to mutually translate between all the different ways of talking about the same thing, as opposed to having a single unified way of
exactly
approaching it.
Yeah.
I'm broadly sympathetic to the vision of such a pluralistic coalition emerging and outcompeting the Molochian ones currently in power, where that outcompeting can look like integration.
Totally, yeah, exactly. It's there's a really interesting story that I
just want to add that one of the hard parts is how to avoid repeating the same Molochian dynamics within the new thing that emerges.
Do you have a specific failure mode that you're sort of foreseeing there?
I'm just reminded about how after Muhammad died, there was an immediate
right schisming and power dynamics and
those dynamics seem pretty convergent.
Right.
How are we going to just
the Catholic Church remained Catholic for 1,000 years, by which I mean the word Catholic means there's only one, universal, right? And then the Orthodox split, and then the Protestant. Right. Oh, I guess it took a few hundred years to even get to the point where there was one, Catholic Church that had dismissed all the others as heresy. I mean, I think we're going to see something very. The fact that I think it has to be pluralistic from the outset is one piece, which is not how any of the early churches have done it. Right. They all have a thing where you have to check your experience against the authority on some level. I mean, there's long been mystic side branches, whether it's Sufism in Islam or whether it's various Christian mystics or other things, maybe Vajrayana or whatever. There's long been sort of more mystic side branches where no, you actually don't check with the authority, you're checking with your own experience. I basically think that needs to become mainstream somehow, and I don't know. That's a giant question mark for me. How do you make mysticism mainstream? It's maybe that's the wrong way to think about it. That it might just be intractable when framed that way. But
I do agree that there's something there to the question.
Yeah.
I also just want to do a time check.
Yeah, it's 5 o'clock right now.
It is 5 o'clock.
Do we want to wrap?
Yeah, I think we should wrap.
Yeah, I think we've gotten some good pieces.
Yeah.
I feel a sense of okay, we have looked at the thing together, and seen various places where we're on the same page, and seen some places where we're not. We had that moment of hearing Hell's Prayer a little bit, and yeah,
neat,
cool. All right. Do we hit the clapper again, or
I guess?
Or would we just do it for the sake of it?
One of the above.